Okay, foundations of 11. Let's get after it. Here we go. Video number 5. We are jumping into section 2. We are looking at central tendencies. We're kind of in our statistics section. Now, 3 important words in central tendency are these right here. Mean. And what do they mean? Well, mean means your average. So you've calculated mean many times over, I'm sure. Median. Median means the middle, and you see that predominantly in pieces of information like what is the median household income, and that just means the middle. I'll discuss more in class about why median is often a better representation than mean, but if you think about average, you're averaging everything up. So if there are extreme outliers on either side, for instance, if something costs $0, that's going to greatly affect your average because it's an outlier. Or if something is overly expensive, it's going to affect your mean because it's an outlier. So median kind of takes that out, and what it does is it clumps everything. You find the middle, and I'll show you how to calculate that with these 2 examples at the bottom. And then mode is the number that appears the most in our list. Now, it's important for median that we write our lists in ascending order, which means smallest to biggest. So let's look at these 2 lists we have below us. This first list here is already in ascending order. So how do we get the mean? Well, for the mean, we add all these digits up. Okay, so it's going to be 0 plus 1 plus 2 plus all of those things all the way to plus 8. And then we need to know how many of those numbers did we have? How many data points did we have? We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So to get the average, we divide by 9. So I've crunched the calculation for you. And what we end up with and what you should end up with in your calculator is 4.2. So that is the mean, that is the average of those numbers. Now for the median, what we're looking for is we're looking for the middle. And this list is already in ascending order. So let's just kind of start counting, right? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. So we actually have a middle number. And you'll see what happens if we don't have a middle number. But boom, there it is. That's my median for this one, okay? So for that list of numbers, my median is 5. And then the last one is what's the mode? And a mode is the number that appears the most times. If you look at that list, well, 5 appears twice. So I have a mode of 5 as well. So those are the 3 different measures of central tendency. Now let's look at the list below that one. That's a new list, and we'll use it as a new example. Now in order to find the mean, we don't really need it to be in ascending order, but in order to find the median, we will. So let's put it in ascending order anyways. And what I like to do when I'm doing that so I don't miss any numbers is I'll go, okay, well that's first. So 1, and then 2, and then 4, and then 5, and then 7, and then 12, and then 14. So I didn't miss any. Count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 12. And see, did miss one. I missed that extra 7. So that's why it's always good to double check. 7, 12, 14. And see now, okay, they're all there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. My original list also had 8. So now my list is in ascending order. So in order to do our average, we're just going to calculate our average by adding all these numbers up and then dividing them, but this time we're dividing by 8. So for this example, you get a mean score of 6.5. If you add all those digits up and then divide by 8, you should get 6.5. Now here is where we have a median that doesn't have a middle number in our list, right? Because we could go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Well, these 2 were kind of tied for being in the middle. So when that situation arises, you add those 2 numbers together and you divide it by 2. You take their average. So in this case, 12 divided by 2. So for this one, our median is 6. And then the last one is the mode. We've done that before. Here I have 2 7s in my list. So for this one, my mode is 7. So those are the 3 different central tendency values. And you're going to see a few other examples here on how we work through them. So here we have the mean. Okay, mean, remember, is the average. So here's a list of salaries, monthly salaries. Net gross doesn't make a difference in this case. It's just these are your salaries. And we want to find the mean. And if we want to find the mean, we don't have to worry about putting them in any sort of order. We're just going to add them up. So we're going to take 3,400 and we're going to add 2,500 and 6,300 and then 5,900, and then 4,400. And we're going to divide that total by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, sure, there are stat central tendency calculators on Google. You can find them, but the aspect of these lessons is for you to just kind of get a hands-on experience in calculating them. We're not going to do a ton of this number crunching because there are good calculators and there's good programs that can do this for you, but it's worth getting your hands dirty here just a little bit. So when you add these things up, you get a total of 22,500. And then we need to divide that by 5 to get our average. And then our average comes out at $4,500, right? So there's an example of your mean. Now, you know how I said the median is often a better representation, because imagine I had a 0 on the end and maybe, like a 100,000. So someone gets paid a lot of money. That's going to throw off your average. So the average isn't necessarily the best representation, and the median is oftentimes a little bit more realistic. Just keep that in mind when you start reading or hearing values where they say median versus mean, because they throw those words around in economics and in the news, and most people aren't even sure what they even mean. So it's always good to be informed and know what it is what we're talking about. So now here you go, example of median. Here's a median household incomes in Victoria. Now all of these are in the thousands, so I'm going to shorthand this a little bit and write K instead of all those zeros. And this is where, when we're doing median, we need them in ascending order. So I'm going to start from the lowest and I'm going to get to the biggest. So I have a 65,000, so that'll go first, 65K, and then 75K, and then 83K, and then 92K. And after 92, what do I have left? I got 112 and 235. So there's all of my thousands. So where's my middle? Well, 1, 2, 3 from the left gets me to there. 1, 2, 3 from the right. Oh, I don't have a middle number, so I need to average these two out. 83 plus 92, and then divide that by 2, and I get 87,500. So that is my median household income in Victoria. Remember, if you do not have a middle, you average the two middle numbers. If you do have a middle, you're done. Okay, so next up is another example of the mode. Remember, the mode is the number that appears the most. Now, when you have a big list like this, it might be easy enough to not rearrange them. Totally up to you. I don't mind rearranging them, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go like this. 15, 1, 2, 3. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my color. 14, 1, 2. Okay. So I already know I can eliminate 14, so I'm just going to erase my yellow because it doesn't pass my 15. I'm going to cross those out. 16, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now 16 is my current winner. So what I would do, I'm only doing that here because I have the digital version. I can cross out my values. I'm not going to concern myself with 15 anymore. I know it doesn't appear the most. So now I'm on to the number 13, but if I look down my list, it only appears once. And now I'm on to 18. I look at my list, 1, 2. I look at 17, 1, 2, 3. And I look at 19, 1. So boom, there's my winner. 16 occurs 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So my mode is 16. You can find your mode, set your list up wherever you like. It's just one way you can tackle it. So now, here we have a scenario where we have limits of potential scores. So the example here is IQ. Now, when you have a range of potential solutions, you need to take the midpoint of each of them. So you take the average of the top point and the bottom point. So in our case, since it's tens, we're right in the middle. And then you need to consider your frequency, because this is how many people scored that value. So in order to get the average, we're going to need all of the frequencies multiplied by their midpoint ranges. So what does that look like? Well, the midpoint of 80 and 90 is 85. So we're going 2 times 85. And then we're going to go 9 times 95. And then 11 times 105. And then 5 times 115. 2 times 125. And then 1 times 135. because you need to consider that each of those scores occurs that many times respectively, right? So now if we multiply all those up, you end up with 170, 855, 1155, 575, 250, and 135. Now we're taking the average. So we total all those numbers up and we get 3,140. But it's important that we're not only averaging that list of 6, we're averaging all 30 respondents that are included in your frequency. If you add up all those numbers in your frequency, you get 30 randomly selected people. So we need to divide by 30. And that's how we get our average in this case, which is 104.7. So just be aware of this disparity when you have a potential limit of scores. You take the midpoint, and if you have a frequency, you have to multiply it by that frequency. So the last one is one that makes you think just a little bit. Missing values and the sample mean in a relationship. So I have 10 numbers with a mean of 37, but we don't know those numbers. So the best way to think about this is, okay, one number plus all my other numbers plus my 10th number divided by 10, because that's how many numbers I have, is 37. So what that tells me, multiply both sides by 10, is that the total of those 10 numbers must have been 370. All right, a little bit of algebra there. Now when we remove a number, so when we add all these numbers up, but only 9 of them, we divide by 9, we get a new mean, which is 38. So do the same thing in this case. Multiply both sides by 9, because the 9's cancel. Here your 10's canceled. And you end up with the 9 numbers added together give you 342. So then what was the total of the number missing? Well, one number is missing from this list, right? My 10th number. So if you do 370 minus 342, you get the total that is missing from the list, so 28. So that means the 10th number was 28. So that's central tendency. You got your notes on my website. Have a look, work through it, play around with mean, median, and mode. Have a bit of fun. And next we're going to look at standard deviation. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.